Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the last dispensation. We are your hosts, Troy and Andrea Abels. I finally got her in front of the camera. She's not sitting in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So now they can see your beautiful face.
Yes.
Before we get started, I want to mention Brother Palmer. I'm sure most of you know because a lot of you are part of his audience. That he's going through some things right now, and he's sick. He's got he calls it the Rona, the coronavirus, and let's pray for him. Keep him and his family, because I'm sure they're going to get it sooner or later. Let's hope they don't, and let's hope Brother Palmer doesn't escalate to something worse than what he's already got. Right, babe?
Yes, because it doesn't take long before it takes some crazy turn, and
Right.
that's a scary thing. So
Very scary
yeah,
thing.
so hopefully everybody's okay, and I guess that's a testament to living a healthy lifestyle and making
Right.
sure that you're taking care of yourself, so that way
Exactly.
your body can be strong enough to overcome.
So we were going to talk on another note. We were going to talk about the last days.
No,
No?
no,
What were we going to talk about?
I don't know. See, that's why we shouldn't have planned anything, because it's better if we just off the cuff just throw conversation.
All right,
in.
what's going on? All right. So, well, let me read this scripture here, and then let's kind of spin off of this.
Okay.
What does this mean right here? This is in Moroni chapter 8, verse 31. Yea, it shall come in a day when there shall be... So what's he talking about? It shall come in a day. The second coming?
I don't know, read the verse.
Okay. It shall come in a day when there shall be great pollutions upon the face of the earth. What are these great pollutions? What is that talking about? It's not talking about the city dump, right?
Possibly. It could be literal. Could also be hyperbolic. I don't know.
Is
Keep
that,
going.
okay. There shall be murders and robbing and lying and deceivings and whoredoms and all manner of abominations, when there shall be many who will say, do this or do that, and it mattereth not, for the Lord will uphold such at the last day. But woe unto such, for they are in the gall of bitterness and in the bonds of iniquity. Any thoughts on
So it shall come in a day. So we're talking about what
that? The second coming.
coming of Christ.
Right.
Um.
But let's start at the beginning. What are these great pollutions he's talking about? That's interesting, because I never could quite... Are we talking about the men's and people's hearts and their minds and what they're thinking and what they're doing? The actions of their hearts and their minds?
Well, I mean, it specifically
Great
says upon the
pollutions.
face of the earth. So in my opinion, I think we're talking about actual great pollutions. Like, there's a lot of pollution. I mean, it's not as horrible. I don't know. This is a touchy subject between whether or not you really believe that mankind is as bad as it is, or if you don't. So there's pollution. There is pollution, a lot of pollution.
What do you mean by pollution?
Like, just garbage. There's massive landfills just filled with garbage.
So you think they're talking about
That doesn't
literal
exist.
pollution?
I think so. I personally think so. There's oil spills all over the place. There's an oil spill right now off the coast of San Diego that they're trying to...
So are you one of those
What?
environmentalist wackos?
No, I'm not getting crazy here. I'm just stating it for
Who
what
are
it is.
you anyway? No,
Okay, let's compare this from when it was,
I think they're
written.
talking about sin and iniquity. But I like your idea. That makes me think differently a little bit.
Well, because if it's something that's talking, it's Revelation, right? Or it's Mormon 8, but it's talking about the last days. It's still prophecy.
Right.
Okay, so we do live in a world that has a lot of pollution compared to when Moroni was writing this.
True.
So think about...
This was before textiles and plastics
right,
and
hazardous waste
oil-based,
dumps and
petroleum-based products
yeah,
and
there's a
things
lot
like
of
that.
there's a
yeah.
lot of I mean, there's nuclear waste dump sites where they have to bury barrels of nuclear waste.
Right.
Like that didn't exist back when Moroni was. I mean, yes. So yes, I
So
think
that could be it too.
it could be real, actual pollution that we're.
All right, let's go on.
But that's not important. Right?
No, that's interesting.
Let's talk about that for another 30 minutes.
There shall be murders and robbing and lying and deceivings and whoredoms and all manner of abominations. Now, here's my question about this. Is that something new and different? Or is it something that because of these propaganda machines that we have today called televisions and radio and podcasts and YouTube and all other forms of social media, is it because we see it now a lot? Like it's brought into our living rooms? Or are there more robbings and more murders and lyings?
Well, you got to think about the population growth.
Uh-huh.
I think that I don't know this for sure. I don't have statistics. We should talk to Thomas Sowell. He would have the statistics for us, or Larry Elder or somebody. But
yeah.
But we don't. I think that the world was probably a lot safer. But then I don't know. I hear a lot of stories about like village plundering and highwaymen, and all kinds of stuff from back, before modernity, and I don't know.
There was crime.
There was, people stealing other people for slavery and, all kinds of stuff. But that stuff happens now too, like all the time. So I don't know.
Right.
I know that because of the advent of the media, like you were saying, it's in our face all the time. It's in our face all the time.
Yeah.
So,
like when it says we're going to get. Oh well, we're not going to get. Other scriptures that talk about earthquakes and upheavals and fires and tempests in diverse places. Is that because there's more upon the earth now, or is it because
we're more aware?
We're more aware of it. There we go.
That is a very good question, and I don't know. We would have to be like scientists or something.
Yeah.
And do a lot more research to figure that out. I don't know. That's a good question. I wonder what our people think.
Yeah, what do you think?
Is it happening more often? Are there more earthquakes today than there were 100 years ago or 500 years ago? Or not?
Right.
We do know the weather patterns are changing. Okay? That's something that we're seeing. It's happening. We notice it even in our little area here where, it used to be the weather was just a slightly different, not a huge difference, but just slightly different. Like it used to be way foggier in the winter, and it's not anymore. But we don't know exactly what's causing that.
But then I've heard from scientists, other prominent scientists, that those weather patterns change every 200 to 300 years.
Right.
And maybe it was like this in the 1600s.
Right.
We don't know.
Right.
So
my point was not saying pro or for or against climate change or any of that. It's just saying like, well, you can look around and go, oh well, things do seem like they're changing.
Right.
And
right.
Know.
About this, when there shall be many who will say, do this or do that, and it mattereth not, for the Lord will uphold such at the last day. Now, are we talking about let's see here. Do this or do that, and it mattereth not, for the Lord will uphold us at the last day. So we're talking about no accountability.
Yep.
Or like what we were talking about the other day.
Yeah, it's basically Moroni's version of do what thou wilt.
Do what thou wilt.
Do this or do that, doesn't matter. Do what thou wilt.
Right.
and it mattereth not. You know, that's basically, and that's the what? Who said that? Was it Crowley?
Aleister Crowley.
Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, he was. We could talk about him sometime.
Yeah.
He was the opposite of. Well, I don't really know how bad he was as a human being, or if it was more hype. But there have been some things written about him that, let me change my mind on that. He's done some bad things. We don't need to talk about him.
We don't know him.
Know.
we never met him. But he wrote some things that have influenced people throughout the last 100 years or so.
And I heard that he did some bad, heinous things, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But the reason we brought him up is because we believe that Satan does work through beings on the earth today. Mm-hmm. And he has been ever since Cain. And I've done some videos on that, mm-hmm. Where Cain was the father, he was the father of all lies next to Satan. He is the son of perdition. And many walked after the manner of his philosophies. And so we bring up Aleister Crowley because he was the opposite, the antithesis of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it was during a time, the turn of the century. What was going on during that time?
Well, that was like the beginning of the scientific, well, not the beginning, but it was at the height, one of the height. Darwinism was kind of taking hold. Scientific reasoning was kind of overcoming fundamentalist beliefs in Christianity and trying to kind of put a big wedge between that. Spiritualism was rampant.
Right.
People were really, really
seances,
trying to find the nature of the soul.
The Ouija board, wasn't that kind of, was that when that was invented?
I don't really know when the Ouija board was invented, but it was popularized
around
that time, and now we just have it as a board game. It's weird.
Yeah.
So weird. But yeah, lots of things were happening back then that are continuing to have an influence on people all the way up till now. And I think now it's gone. I don't know how many people are humanists. I don't know how many people are secularists. I don't know how many people are atheists. I know there's a lot. And
that's when communism was kind of birthed too.
Yeah.
That's when what were their names? The family, the first family, the royal family.
The Romanovs?
The Romanovs were assassinated.
Yeah.
And Vladimir.
Lenin?
Yeah. No. Vladimir Lenin. His name was Vladimir. Did you
Vladimir,
know that?
Just like Putin.
Yeah. He took over.
And Dracula. Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
And Dracula.
All the bad people.
He took over, and that was
If you want your child to grow up to be a dictator, name him Vladimir. Baby names across.
Yeah.
Vladimirs.
It's better than all these other names that sound like last names. Anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah, so there were different ideologies coming aboard on the earth. Where was I?
I'm not sure.
Well, you're a big help. Golly.
I don't know I don't even know where we're going anymore.
Okay. Communism.
Communism.
Yeah, and who is the father of all lies? And communism is a lie.
A big lie.
And we go back, it goes to Satan. It's all tied together in one big ball of darkness. All right, here we go. And here's the last of this verse, verse 31.
Okay.
But woe unto such, for they are in the gall of bitterness and in the bonds of iniquity. Well, that's a given, right?
What is a gall? I think of the gall as that like a
Well, what's a gallbladder?
well.
Is that the same thing? What does gall mean?
What is gall?
Let's look up gall.
I think of like the tree galls, where like it's like a growth that a bug grows in.
Let me look up
Like a
gall.
wasp. Gall wasps.
In the gall of bitterness. In impudence, insolence.
Oh, okay, that's like if you have gall.
You have gall towards someone. Go ahead. You can look.
Let me do it. So, as a noun, gall is bold and impudent behavior. Or it can be gall as in the contents of the gallbladder, otherwise known as bile. Proverbial for its bitterness.
Right.
Okay, so the gall, that's what it's talking about, is the gall meaning...
It's bitter.
Like, it's full of bitterness.
Full of bile.
Full of yuck.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to pick a word
To describe being bitter.
bitterness, that's the best one.
So my thing about gall wasps is way off.
Yeah. So these are some of the things that are happening in the last days. And this ties into like protecting our families. Before we end, what are some things that we can do to combat a lot of this, or be on our guard towards this in the last days?
Well, I mean, just I think that we're all as members of the church, we're all constantly thinking about it. I mean, at least I think we should be thinking about it. I guess there's a lot of members that don't want to think about the fact that we're in the last days, or that that's an option or a possibility. And I understand why, because we all just want to live our lives and everything. So I understand not wanting to think about, if you have a young family or something, a lot of little ones, and you don't want to think about the end. You want to just keep moving forward and watch your little ones grow up and not be worried about those things. And I get that. But not to the point of just completely ignoring the fact that we are surrounded by all of this sin and iniquity and all these things that are around us, and not acknowledging the fact that we need to do something about it. I don't think anybody's really guilty of that, but...
Well, ahead. And it's... What do you mean by that? Nobody's really guilty?
I think that we're all aware and that we do our best to protect our families. There's a lot of people that don't like talking about the last days.
I find that a lot.
A lot of people. They don't like talking about it.
I have relatives.
Makes
you
them
know some of those relatives that you mentioned that. And they're married. So one of the one spouse loves to talk about it a lot with me. And the other spouse gets upset when we talk about it. And I don't know why, because that's not something that we can avoid, especially living in the last days.
It took me a while when we got married. It took me a while to get used to talking about it, because you like to talk about it a lot. And in the beginning, our first probably year or so that we were married, I would be like, okay, do we have to talk about the last days all the time? I get it. We're in the last days. Yes, the world is coming to an end.
Well, the family's
Jesus
under
will
assault.
come back soon. Okay, got it.
Right.
But
and the not just Latter-day Saint families, all families are under assault in these last days, and especially young people.
I remember the first time. I don't know exactly remember when, but we'd been married maybe about 6 months or so, and Nicholas had just turned 9, I think, and Levi was 9. Okay, and they were going to bed, and I remember you going in and talking to them, and I could hear you talking to them, and you were telling them, one day you're gonna have to be a soldier for Jesus, and this world's gonna get really scary, and
Did I say soldier for
I don't know
Jesus?
exactly what you said, but it was something along those lines. You were talking to 9-year-olds, so you were, I don't know, but I was sitting in the living room going, "Stop scaring my babies!" Like, but I understood why you have to talk to your kids about these things, because they have to understand it. And it's not necessarily
can't avoid it,
right, and it's not necessarily something that they're going to get from Sunday school or anywhere else. They have to get it from their families. They have to understand what it means to live in the last days.
And there is a way we could do it. We can talk to them without scaring them.
No, I know, but I remember because I had just barely joined the church, so to me, talking about the last days was like, why do we have to talk about the last days so much? Like, like, I get it, it's going to happen, but why do we have to confront it,
right?
So regularly? And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, my poor little boys are going to be so afraid now, like, like, oh, that, so it's like, that's something that we do, that we have to learn how to do, is to talk to our kids about this. And how do we talk to our kids without, making them neurotic, nervous messes, right? We don't want to give them some kind of, mental illness about it, or some kind of nervous tick.
We don't want them to think that they should stop accomplishing their goals, and setting goals,
right,
and living their lives,
right, exactly. We don't want them to think that they shouldn't bring kids into the world, or all these things that a lot of people who think that the world is evil and we shouldn't be bringing. But that's not the point. So yeah, that's one thing that we do to try to protect our families, is to talk about these things, amongst each other and with our kids, and try to find that line of, how do I approach this with my kids? How old should my kids be when I start talking about these things? So I think Nicholas now and Levi, they're 14.
And what are they capable of? I think we need to gauge that with them too, is to see what they're capable of receiving,
of absorbing,
from us,
and getting, and right. So now that they're 14, they understand, what we meant by all that. What why are we?
And they
why
didn't
were we
seem
talking
scared.
About it? No, I know. I just as a
matter of fact,
convert, I was like,
Levi's kind of interested in it.
Yeah,
he's intrigued by it when I talk about it.
Yeah.
Nicholas,
Nicholas is autistic, and he's just kind of like goes with the flow of whatever. He's just like, okay, sure, bring it on. Like, whatever you say, Mom. Like.
That's right.
But yeah, but Levi's like, yeah, that's gonna be cool. So he's excited.
All right.
Is that it? We're done?
Well,
doing the let's wrap it up voice.
No, she told me to give her a signal, and I went like this down here.
I ignore.
Like 10 minutes ago.
I ignore.
No, I didn't. It was like 3 minutes ago.
Was it? I didn't even notice that you did
It's
that.
okay, but you told me to do that.
I know, but I didn't even pay attention.
We're gonna leave it up. We're in the raw, man. We're leaving it all up.
We're figuring it out.
I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea.
What?
We don't know how to wrap this up yet. We don't know when the other person's done talking. So we're figuring it all out. This is trial and error, right?
It's fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
Are we gonna say that every time we're
let's do that. That sounds fun.
All right, we'll say that.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.